Welcome back, everybody. Now that we've covered verbs, this time we're going to go into adjectives. Now these are their own little bundle of annoyances, but we have to tackle them eventually. But once this is done, we'll finally have all the building blocks we need to start putting some sentences together. So there are three types of adjectives. adjectives, na adjectives, and no adjectives. And of course they each have their own special rules. But don't worry, adjectives are much simpler than verbs. We're going to start with As the name suggests, adjectives all end in E. As a reference, the first one most people learn is Kawaii. This one means cute. Japan currently has a subculture known as Kawaii culture. This is where Hello Kitty, Gudetama, and things like this come from. Along with this Kawaii culture, you also get the Japanese Lady Gaga clone army, and if you live in Japan and run into these people, they perceivably only know 4 words. Kawaii, sugoi, kimoi, and yabai. It gets really annoying after a while. Anyway, I got a bit off track there. The first thing to mention is that if you remove the E and change it to ku, it changes from an adjective to an adverb. So for example, 彼女の踊りは可愛いです. Her dance is cute. And then with the adverb way would be 彼女は可愛く踊っています. She is dancing cutely or in a cute way. Another one, and much more common example, would be hayai, which means fast or early. But then when you change it to hayaku, it becomes quickly or in a hurry. So in a sentence you would say, 彼は起きるのが早い. He is an early riser. Or with the adverb way would be, もう早く来なさいよ. Which means, hurry up already. As you will see, the E in the E adjective was born to be sacrificed. In just about every form you'll learn, it's usually dropped. For each new form I explain, I'm going to use a different adjective to get you familiar with all of them, but just know they all act the same in each form. However, this is Japanese, so there are exceptions, but I'll get to those at the end. The first form we're going to look at is the negative form. Now, this is going to look familiar if you remember the verb video. Generally, when you shift u to a and add nai, it becomes the negative form. As with verbs, the nai is the part that makes it negative. So, our friend E changes to ku, and then we add nai. So the adjective oishii, meaning tasty or delicious, would become oishikunai, meaning not taste good. But of course, adjectives have opposites. In English, the opposite for this would be gross or disgusting. When talking about food, gross and not taste good essentially mean the same thing. But just as it is in English, the nuance is different, and there's more weight behind the one that is more direct. It's like saying, I don't like her and I hate her. One of those is clearly stronger. So the stronger way to say oishikunai would be mazui, which means unpleasant. Interestingly, the word or character that means energy, spirit, atmosphere is ki. And if you combined ki and mazui to be kimazui, meaning unpleasant atmosphere. Or in English we would just say awkward. Sorry, I really need to keep on track. The next one we're going to go into is the past tense form. For this, you would remove the E and add katta. So the adjective omoshiroi, meaning interesting or funny, would become omoshirokatta. Ano eiga wa omoshirokatta yo ne? That movie was really funny. Now we're going to learn how to add the negative and the past tense at the same time. First you add nai, and then once again remove the E and add katta. So, kibishii, meaning strict, would become kibishikunai, and then kibishikunakatta. Okaasan wa watashi ni taishite kibishikunakatta. My mom wasn't so strict with me. Now that we've gotten to this point, I'm going to give you your first Japanese tongue twister. The word atatakai means warm. How would you say wasn't warm? I'll give you a sec. Try it. Atataka kunakatta. I don't know if you will fare better than I did, but I always have problems with words that have repeating vowel sounds, and this one has 7. A, ta, ta, ka, ku, na, ka, ta. To continue that little bit of pronunciation practice, here's a list of the most common E adjectives. Now we're going to move on to na adjectives. They're called na adjectives because, like E adjectives, they all end in na. Except they only end in na when they're directly describing something else. For example, genki, meaning healthy or energetic. So you could say, 彼は元気な人です. He is an energetic person. And if you're not directly describing something, you would drop the na. The most common example of this would be, お元気ですか? Simply to mean, how are you? Literally translated, it's, are you healthy or are you well? Na adjectives also have an adverb form. For this, you would remove the na and add ni, using the example word shizuka, meaning quiet. Shizuka ni yoru o sugosu no ga daisuki desu. I love spending my evenings quietly at home. Next would be the negative form. Now, we haven't touched on this yet, but na adjectives in the negative form and in the past tense form behave the exact same way as nouns. The casual way to say a na adjective in the negative form would be janai. We all know that nai means negative, but what is the ja part? I've always thought of it as sort of a cancellation of the previous thing. To show an example, the word nigiaka, which means lively, more specifically like with a party or a place. So the negative form, nigiaka janai. At first, I always just thought this was lively? Not. If it helps to think about it this way, then go ahead, but eventually you'll get used to it and not even think about it. Adding on another side note, this also explains my exit quote, "Ja-ne." This is actually the really casual and friendly way to say this. The full phrase is "ja mata ne." Starting from the end, the ne is sort of a particle I didn't explain yet. If added at the end of the sentence, it's kind of a question, but only the kind of question that asks for approval or agreement. What I mean by that is it's just asking if you also think or believe what was said before ne. In English, it would be the same as just adding right at the end of the sentence. For any other question, you would add ka to the end of the sentence, like I did earlier in this video. O genki desu ka? Simply to mean, how are you? Literally translated, it's, oh my god, stop. Okay. At this point, it's a tangent of another tangent. Let's try to backpedal and save this. Where were we? Right. The thing before ne is mata, meaning again. So literally translated, it would just be like, again, yeah? But obviously in this context, it just kind of means see you later. The ja part is just sort of an anyway to deflect or cancel the conversation so you can get away. Okay, we've made it full circle. Oh boy, this video might be longer than I planned. So let's try to move things along a little bit. The next one is the past tense form. If you remember in e adjectives, we drop the e and add katta. Well, with na adjectives, and also nouns, you add datta instead. This is actually similar to the past tense form of verbs that we haven't talked about yet, but I think we've had enough little sidebars in this episode, so we'll save that for a different video. Okay, to demonstrate this, we're going to use the word kirei, meaning pretty or clean. I wanted to use this word here to show you an example of a na adjective that can look like an e adjective, so be careful. To show an example of this, let's look at my thumbnail for this video. Sakura wa kirei datta ga attayuma ni chitte shimatta. Now this means the cherry blossoms were beautiful, but before I knew it, they were gone. It's okay, they'll be back next year, it's fine. For now, let's just move on to the negative past form of na adjectives. This one's actually really easy. If you noticed, e and na adjectives, negative forms, both end in na, e. Did you see that? They both end in e. So now they're both e adjectives, meaning they both drop the e and add katta. To illustrate this with an example, I'll use one of each and also to spell a question that comes up often from beginners. The na adjective shinsetsu, meaning kind or considerate, and the e adjective yasashi, meaning gentle, kind, or sweet. A lot of teachers only give the definition kind for both of them, and that can be a bit confusing. The difference is yasashi is a bit more gentle or intimate form of kindness. Okaasan wa yasashii desu. My mom is kind. Whereas shinsetsu leans a little bit more to the considerate side. Joshi wa shinsetsu desu. My boss is kind. Another thing a lot of teachers do here that bothers me is for yasashi, they give a second definition, easy or simple. This is a mistake in my opinion, because then, in order to avoid confusion, most early learners will start to only use yasashi to mean easy, and then shinsetsu they'll use for kind. I see why teachers do this. It's because early on they only teach with hiragana, so technically, yes, yasashi does mean those two things. However, they are two separate words with different kanji. Yasashi means kind. Yasashi means easy or simple. whereas the na-adjective version of easy would be kantan. It's actually much more common too. Sorry, another sidebar. I really need to focus. We were doing negative past of na. Okay, so yasashi would become yasashikunai, and shinsetsu would become shinsetsu janai. Here's the easy part. Now that they both end in nai, they both end in e, which makes them e adjectives. Drop the e and add katta. Makes sense, right? Now before we just jump into no adjectives, here's a list of all the most common na adjectives. The last part is going to be a bit anticlimactic, because you actually already learned no adjectives by accident in the grammar video. Now this is the possession and linking particle. It's used between two nouns to combine them into a single concept. Ryoko no shitaku, trip preparations. Trip and prepare are two separate nouns, but when combined they mean the specific concept of preparations required before a trip. You see, whenever you take two nouns and combine them with a no in the center, the first one then describes the second. Another example would be Nihon no jinkou, Japan's population. The word Japan adds more description to the word population, so you know which population you're talking about. So that's the easy half of no adjectives, but there is another one. Some na adjectives can be no adjectives as well, and it sort of changes the adjective into the noun it represents. The best example I have found for this is using a word we learned earlier. Kirei na hito, beautiful person. Kirei no hinto, beauty tips. The difference is subtle, but I think it's pretty clear once you get used to it. Okay then, that's our quick run through of adjectives. I sincerely hope this is able to help you. Until next time, じゃあね.